Welcome to the second episode of Cairns School of Distance Education's podcast called The Distance Dialogues. I'm Clare, the Parent Liaison Officer, and today with me I have Carmel, who's a teacher here and also a Connect teacher, very special people at our school, and she's here to talk with me about home tutor self-care, a very important topic. And just to let you know, we started this podcast with a few deep breaths because it's always good to incorporate that into your everyday. So we want to acknowledge that home tutors do a lot for their students. It's a very labour-intensive role, it's complicated, and we need to acknowledge what you do for them because it's extremely important for the success of their learning. It's also like wearing an extra hat. So sometimes people talk about putting another hat on, and especially if you're a parent, but even if you're a grandparent or a friend, you really are putting another hat on and playing another role when you become home tutor. Carmel, in your experience, what kinds of pressures do home tutors often put on themselves?
Good morning, Clare. Thanks for having me. Yes, and thank you to all the home tutors for their amazing work in raising our next generation of kids, of humans. Pressures, well, I just thought of myself because we've all got kids. So what sort of pressures are we putting on ourselves? And I feel like the big one is just keeping up with it all, feeling like you're on this busy train, especially with technology, with AI, modern day life, just trying to tick all the boxes. That's a big pressure that is just sort of in the background that perhaps sometimes it gets a bit more overwhelming. So when we start feeling like that, that's when we really need to do that check-in, have those little gaps in our day, a bit of space where we are looking after ourselves. Because if we're not looking after ourselves, then that has that ripple effect on our families, on our students.
I also believe that home tutors put a lot of pressure on themselves in regards to the work returns, and that is a pressure for students, but I feel like home tutors should look at it that they're facilitating and helping to organise and managing time and feeding all of these executive functioning skills to our students to help them do the best they can. But we don't need to be striving for excellence all the time. We don't need to strive for perfection. And I think that sometimes it's good to just acknowledge when your student has put the best amount of effort in and tried their hardest and maybe practiced some of those time management skills as well. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. And it's so different here at Distance Ed because there's that breakdown in communication sometimes. So I think the key with those work returns is really just send a quick check-in with the teacher. So build that relationship. So I love it when I hear from students, parents, anyone, because it's just bridging that gap because you've got this unknown, we're online. So when you just hear just a quick email to say, hey, this is what's happening, can we get an extension or can you just clarify something for us? That's the key because there's all these unknowns that we don't know if we don't hear anything. So keep that communication going.
I totally agree. And I feel like I've heard other teachers here say that too. They love it when they get communication from the parents and the students, whether that's saying like something's going on and we're struggling with this, or whether it's just talking about what you did on the weekend. They just love to hear from you and it helps you connect. And connection is key at being a distance education student. So the reason we came up with this kind of concept for the podcast for this episode is because we're actually coming up to a couple of days that are significant in the community calendar. One of those is World Tutors Day, which is coming up on the 2nd of July. In addition to being grateful for your tutor and the amazing job they do, it's also about connection. Maybe it could be a prompt for you to get in touch with some of your home tutors that you met at one of the most recent community engagement events, or join us in week 3 next term when we do our Home Tutor Connect sessions, and you just might find another home tutor that has some things in common with you that you'll be able to connect with, because sharing the burdens and the highs on this journey is going to be helpful for you as well. The other special day that's coming up is actually National Compliment Your Mirror Day. So Carmel, have you ever used Mirror Talk and said affirmations into a mirror to remind yourself of how fantastic you are?
Well, it's when I saw this question, it did take me back to, it was about 5 years ago. And looking back now, reflecting, I was definitely in a bit of a rut. Like, this was a big turning point in my life. I was listening to a podcast. It was Mel Robbins. I don't know if you've heard of it. She had this thing about, do you look in the mirror and do you smile at that reflection in the mornings, or do you just ignore it, or what is your thoughts? And it was a bit of an awakening where I thought, oh my goodness, yeah, I don't know, I just go through the motions like pretty much everybody else, I guess. And then I realised, yeah, I'm not, like, you're starting the day. Like, how can you start the day without looking at yourself and smiling? Just that little bit of connection for you. And then that's when I started reflecting on, well, where am I in my life? And I made some big changes.
And I think there's a nice little lesson that we can learn from that too, because talking self-affirmations into a mirror, it has to be honest. So if there's something niggling in the back of your mind there, say it out loud and then act on it. And maybe it's everything that you're trying to fit into your day and there's not enough space in there for you. There might be something you can take out, even if someone's depending on you, even if you've made a promise, just analyze it all and see how you can turn it around to make change for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that you have to look after first and foremost, and then you're more capable of looking after other people as well.
Yeah, so true. And we get into this automatic state where we don't realise, we just go through the motions, and then after a certain amount of time that builds up, and then you find that, oh, hang on a minute, you got to go right back to where it all began, where it starts in the morning. Totally. Like, what are you saying to yourself first thing in the morning when you wake up? Yeah.
The mirror exercise to me actually made me think immediately of this very short video that's on social media about a little girl with very, very curly hair, and her mum gets her to actually jump up onto the bathroom bench next to the sink and look into the mirror and shout at herself and throw fists around, celebrating all the wonderful things about her. Like, she loves her curly hair, she loves she can jump up and down, and it's a very naive way of looking at it, but it can change. So when I saw that, I started to get my kids to do it, but now that they're teenagers, they weren't so excited about jumping up on the bench and yelling positive things about themselves to each other. But now when they say something negative, I say, shall we go into the bathroom, look in the mirror and find something amazing about you that we could remind ourselves. And so I think that's good for home tutors as well. Go in there today or tomorrow, have a look and tell yourself the good things about you. You will find one, and you should say them every day, every morning, just to get into a routine.
It's a personal thing. You don't have to tell the world about it like we are now, but but no one needs to know, and it feels really cheesy. It feels really quite uncomfortable because it's something that perhaps we don't do. But it's so important, because then over time you realise, oh my goodness, of how many times you're not being kind to yourself, you're not saying good things to yourself.
And your inner self listens to everything that you hear around you, so why not have an impact on that too? Yeah, good point. So if you could sit down with a home tutor, or with every home tutor at the end of a long, long day of learning together with their students, is there something that you would like to say to them?
Yeah, it depends on so many things, doesn't it? It depends on what's happened in the day, but it's how are you feeling right now? Right now. Are they exhausted, or has it been a good day? So one of the things that we study in senior health is the positive psychology by Martin Seligman. We look at the PERMA framework, which is in the student diaries, which is those elements that make up wellbeing. So one of his activities was, at the end of a day, writing 3 things that went well for the day. Just, it could be anything. Or it's just a check-in and a breath of just,
to offload a bit as well.
Another day. Yeah, what did happen? Reflect on it and then celebrate the wins.
Exactly. Another thing that I thought was worth mentioning is, if a home tutor is experiencing burnout, do you have any suggestions of how they can begin to manage that, or some tips of even noticing it coming on?
Yeah, definitely. I did feel like I was getting a bit of burnout when I went to the primary school setting, and I see that a lot in a lot of the teachers and home tutors and parents, because we're not breathing. I was doing 8 lessons of PE a day, and it's just bang, 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 one after the other. So I'd be seeing 200 kids at least in one day. And That's quite overwhelming when you think about it, of all the things that can happen between the hours of 9 and 3 with 200 kids in a PE class, hitting balls, running around on cement, all those things. So there's lots of things that were going on. And for the first few weeks, I'd be getting home absolutely exhausted. And then I realised that I was not doing any checking in with myself throughout the day. Like I was not breathing. I would just be just one thing to the next, one lesson to the next. And I had to just make it a point that I would, even during lessons, so if the kids were off on a warm-up, I would go, right, okay, breath, always comes back to the breath. And even between transitions of class, I would just stop myself and give myself those little tiny spaces in my day just to help energise my body, because otherwise you can't sustain that. You can't keep up with that if you're not breathing and you're not aware of what's going on inside. So that's probably a big
And there's
point.
absolutely nothing selfish about taking that moment to breathe. I feel like some people think that there might be, but looking after yourself is very important so you can be the best home tutor and the best parent of your children and the best person for yourself. It's so worth taking that moment. That moment could also be a brain break. When I talk to lots of parents on the phone, I talk about incorporating brain breaks into the students' timetable. Yeah. But why not join them or schedule your own brain breaks?
I do them in my classes, definitely. Just I've been talking for a while. Let's stop now. Let's all get up and do some movement. And there's so many YouTube clips that you can just follow along and do a little bit of dancing or stretching or something, which just,
or
breaks
chair
up.
yoga.
Yeah, there's so many resources online that
and it's fun
you can incorporate.
and it's healthy and important as well.
Yeah, I agree.
And just finally, Carmel, what's one thing that you'd like home tutors to take away from this conversation?
Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding and support that you would offer a friend, because, no one else is advocating for you, so you need to advocate for yourself.
That's a very good message, and I hope you're all listening and that you take that on board and have a think about it for tomorrow's mirror affirmations. There's also a fun home tutor self-care activity that we can play. It's called Flipping the Script, and it's all about taking any of those negative thoughts that a lot of home tutors and people and adults and children sometimes think about, acknowledging them, and then reframing them into a positive thought. So I'm going to play the part of a home tutor. I feel like I might be failing my student. Carmel, do you have a way that you could flip that into a positive affirmation?
Yes. Okay. Why am I thinking this? Am I tired? This is what I would say to myself. As soon as I start having these thoughts of, oh my goodness, I'm hopeless, whatever, I think, hang on, did I sleep well last night? Have I got a lot on my plate right now? And there's common patterns that I can see that, all right, this negative talk is a lot more prominent at certain times of the day, after a long day. So I would say, do I just need a break? Do I just need some space? But no, I would sort of flip that. I'm not failing my student. I'm there for them. I'm doing my best. Maybe I'll just check in with them, check in with their teachers, and even have the conversation with my students. Say, how are you going? And they might, I've got 2 teenage boys, so they'll be like, Mum, whatever, I'm fine. That would be their response. But just being there, just counteracting that thought by doing something proactive, I guess. So
and having the conversation is such a great idea. It's something that I talk about as a parent liaison officer, and especially in high school families, we encourage little home conferences. So it's a very formal, fancy word, and you can rename that. But it's just once a week, set time in your timetable for it, come to the table and talk about what you achieved that week, what you need to do for next week, if there was anything you missed, what did you learn, can you do things better, having a really mature conversation with those high school students. And when this becomes a habit, they'll start to give a little bit more. They'll start to share a bit more and have feedback about how their week's going, and it will be a way to connect as well. That was fun. I think you can see that it can be easy to flip a negative thought that's very natural to have and put it into a positively reframed sentence And that's what this game is about. And I can share details of the game as well as the Home Tutor Day thank you cards via email. And Carmel, thank you so much. I knew this was a topic that you are very passionate about, and I really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you. Thanks, Claire.